Born on the 4th of July, May the 4th, Fantastic Four, 4 weddings and a funeral, the 4 tops. What's not to like about the number between 3 and 5? I'm Katie Wilson, welcome to What the Fandom Episode 4. You know, not everyone loves the number 4. Tetraphobia, or fear of the number 4, while starting in Asian cultures is now a global phenomenon. The manga and anime character Guido Mista from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is known to suffer from tetraphobia, and it resulted in many memes. In the movie 444, The Last Day on Earth, the world ends on, well, 444. And of course, in the Bible, the 4 horsemen usher in the apocalypse. Those 4 horsemen: pestilence, famine, war, and archangel. Death. In our episode 4, No Such Doom and Gloom, Matt Nelson, the president and one of the primary comic graders at CGC, will tell us the best ways to protect our comics. We give you a sneak peek at the Poison Ivy origin story you have not seen but totally should, and I will of course be talking tropes and flashing back in time. But in a dramatic turn of events, this time a look back in video game history. It's late June, early July in Japan, 1980. A new game has tested well in May and is ready for its public release. This game would not only alter the arcade forever, but would see parents competing with their kids and quarters disappearing everywhere, as it has the honor of having the most coin-operated versions worldwide. In the first week of July 1980, PuckMan, or PacMan as it was changed to, was released into the world. Arguably the greatest and most influential game of all time, PacMan's Legacy stands up against any other game. Pac-Man gave us many innovations, including the first power-up, defining the popularity of the maze chase genre, but most importantly, Pac-Man proved to the world that a game with a strong character, well, that might just be everything. Its success directly resulted in more playable character-driven games, including Frogger and a plumber who had to jump barrels and battle against a gorilla to save a princess. My favorite Pac-Man spin-off was the one where they gave Pac-Man a bow, and gave gamers one of the first female protagonists, Mrs. Pac-Man. Female characters have not always been treated with respect and character development that male characters have, so it's fallen to women themselves to tell interesting stories and origins of our heroes and anti-heroes. It's with that pleasure I'd love to introduce you to Pamela and Ivy, a fan film like no other that pays tribute to Gotham's greenest lady and tells her origin story. From the mind of Leah McKendrick and the team at GTE Productions, starring Eric Roberts, here is the trailer for Fan Expo exclusive Pamela and Ivy.
Pamela, you can talk to me.
What is this? Ice cream?
What did I say to you? Good girls don't get dirty.
You're so weak, it's embarrassing. Stop! I'll protect you.
Pamela, who is Ivy?
Everybody hands up! You! Hands up!
Okay, that looks amazing. Pamela and Ivy is available to watch right now on this Fan Expo HQ channel. Every time I see Poison Ivy, I'm struck by the balance of nature and humanity she presents, which is a perfect segue to our trope of the week, the human battle to control, understand, or affect nature, also known as the disaster flick. From earthquakes to tornadoes, icebergs, and volcanoes, there is no shortage of natural disaster movies. The first studio film we could find on record is the 1933 earthquake tidal wave picture Deluge. Now, full disclosure, we have not seen it, but it has what you would expect. A natural disaster, a lead character who unites with other survivors to find their way to safety, and I'm sure if they had the tech back then, an epic song and slow-mo montage somewhere in the middle. It was the 70s, however, that saw the most famous and inspiring titles. The Poseidon Adventure, The Towering Inferno, and Earthquake were the predecessors to contemporary faves Twister, Armageddon, and The Day After Tomorrow. The disaster flick is a rinse and repeat trope. You normally need a hero, the one who will obviously survive in the end. The reason for the hero, a love interest, young sidekick, etc. The scientist, who sees things just a bit differently than everyone else. The villain, which surprisingly is not normally the natural disaster itself, but someone with decision-making power, suffering from hubris, and a killer soundtrack. Bam. Disaster movie. You know what else would be a disaster, though? Digging out your copy of Moon Knight #1 right before it skyrockets in price because he's about to get his own Disney show, only to realize you were covered in Nutella back in 1977 and now it's worth nothing. Here to help us avoid such tragedies and tell us what to consider when protecting our comics is CGC President and Primary Grader Matt Nelson.
Hi, I'm Matt Nelson, Primary Grader of CGC Comics. Today I'm going to talk about preservation of your comics and how to store them. So when your comics are in a CGC holder like this, they're obviously protected from being handled because they're in our tamper-proof holder, which is made of very durable plastic. And so they're very safe here. But oftentimes collectors have their comics in bags or milers with a board. And so the question is, how do you handle that? So it's always important to have your comics in miler and acid-free boards. Sometimes there's plastic bags that are sold by comic distributors. Those are good as well. And it's very important to keep those stacked and flat or upright in a box and not sagging to make sure that they're not bent.
And that's a wrap on episode 4. I think we have managed to avoid any tetraphobia. Thanks as always to our special guests. Please make sure to subscribe to get all the great content Fan Expo HQ is serving up. I'm Katie Wilson, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.